Hi there, it's Mr. H again, and I'm going to be reading to you another part from 910, a September 11 story by Nora Raleigh Baskin. This is part two of this video series, so hopefully you watched part one and now you're moving on to part two. So one thing I want to share with you before we get into this chapter is that these chapters don't have chapter titles the way that you might normally be used to seeing a chapter title at the start of a chapter. Instead, what's there are these three lines that you can see in boldface on the screen. And this is the kind of thing that's at the start of each chapter, so letting us know the setting of that part of the story. So this first chapter is taking place here. Here you go. It's September 9, 2001, 7:46 a.m. CDT. CDT stands for Central Daylight Time. So that means it's that time zone, it's 7:46 a.m. And O'Hare International Airport, which maybe some of you know, that's in Chicago. Very large airport in Chicago. So now I'm going to start reading from the book, and so hope you enjoy. It was September 9, 2001, raining in that Chicago, slow drizzle sort of way. Outside the windows of O'Hare International Airport, the sky was painted a particular shade of gray and leaving droplets of water on the large glass windows that looked out onto the airstrip. Sergio and another boy from New York were at the gate, early for their flight home. Their university escort was sitting, eyes closed, listening to her Discman, waiting for the boys to board so she could go home. What was the other boy's name? Sergio couldn't remember. L something? Or M something? For 2 days, Sergio had recognized him as, simply, the white boy with the red hair. Let's go see what's in the candy shop. The red-headed boy pointed to the newsstand, which was filled with everything anyone could possibly think of needing before getting onto a plane. Newspapers, magazines, headrests, paperback novels, earphones, small suitcases, cold drinks, and lots of candy. Sergio glanced over at the escort, who didn't look up. She didn't even open her eyes. Okay, Sergio said. He took one more glance around to make sure they could find their way back to their gate. Everything in the airport appeared the same. Every corner, every window, every set of plastic seats, every gate. It would be easy to get lost. Sergio made sure he would not. Then he checked the information on the board again. Flight 563, JFK. On time, gate 10. His grandmother would be getting up right about now. It was Sunday, her one day to sleep in. But she was probably up already, making coffee, knowing Sergio would be home in a few hours. Sergio didn't realize how homesick he had been the whole time until just then, when he started thinking about his grandmother. It was the first time he had ever been away from home, and he'd only agreed to go at all because his grandma was so proud of him. 5 kids from New York State had been chosen to be honored at the university. 5 kids from New York State had been chosen to be honored at this ceremony at the University of Chicago, all based on one math test they had taken at the end of last year. And for that, Sergio had been flown to Chicago, put up in a hotel, and given 3 meals a day. And when they had called his full name, Sergio Kincaid Williams, he had walked across the gigantic stage of the Court Theater and received his plaque, which was now weighing down his carry-on bag as he perused the newsstand. Kincaid was his father's last name. Of his father, that was pretty much all he wanted to know. You getting anything to eat? The red-headed boy asked when they got into the checkout line. Sergio slipped his hand into his jeans pocket to feel the $20 bill his grandmother had given him 3 days ago. He didn't want to break it if he didn't have to. Don't they give us lunch or breakfast or something on the plane? Yeah, but they won't give us Kit Kat bars. The boy with the red hair put 2 candy bars on the counter. Sergio shook his head. Nah, I'm good. They finished checking out, and the boy handed Sergio one of the Kit Kats. "I hate to eat alone," he said. "Thanks." Sergio took the candy. He wasn't expecting that. It was nice. The red-headed boy began to unwrap his candy, then stopped. He appeared to be more interested in something across the store. "That is so weird, isn't it?" he said. He pointed. "What's she got on her head?" Sergio tried to figure out what the boy was talking about, but didn't see anything. "What's weird? Who?" "Her." The boy gestured across the news shop to a girl with her back toward them, facing a full wall of magazines. She was wearing regular clothes, jeans and a sweater, but her head was wrapped in a shawl, a thin brown veil. Sergio knew what that meant. She was Muslim. There were a lot of Muslim girls in his neighborhood and in his school, but this kid had probably never seen anyone dressed like that. He was from way upstate New York somewhere. At that moment, the girl turned around toward them as if she had heard them talking. Her headscarf completely covered her head and neck, all the way down to her shoulders. Like a child's drawing, her pale face was floating in a sea of brown fabric. Her lips pressed together, her brows furrowed. Her eyes were blue, like the Mediterranean Sea. "Hey man, let's go," Sergio said. It was so not cool to stare. Nahid was used to it, being looked at. She was used to people asking if she was wearing a costume or saying, I didn't know I didn't know you were Arab. Can you belly dance? Do you believe in God? Do you really not eat for a month?" She wasn't Arab. She was Middle Eastern. Well, she was American, born 12 years ago in Columbus, Ohio, and she had never lived anywhere else. She had never once been to Iran, where her Persian mother and father had grown up. She couldn't belly dance either. But she was used to people staring as soon as she left her house, her neighborhood, her school, her friends, and was out in public, as she was here in O'Hare Airport waiting for her uncle and aunt to arrive. Their flight hadn't come in yet. Nahid's family could have just waited outside for Uncle Iman and Aunt Judith to go through security and baggage, but her dad wanted to be right at the gate when his brother got off the plane, so they had gotten to the airport early. Really early. They had already had snacks, gone to the bathroom, and wandered through all of the gift shops, and Uncle Iman's plane was still not there. "Why don't you get yourself a magazine?" Nahid's father offered. "One I would approve of," he quickly added. Nahid gazed at the display wall. There were hundreds of magazines, all with exciting, colorful covers, pretty girls, beautiful clothing, and lots of bare skin. But there wasn't one magazine on this wall her father would let her buy. The girls with their hair blowing freely around their heads like someone had a fan right in their faces, their bare arms showing even though they were advertising winter fashions, Nahid knew it was immodest. A girl does not need to flaunt her beauty to the world, her mother had told her many times. Real beauty is inside, and the right boy will see that. Nahid decided she didn't need anything after all. She turned to head back to her family. Only now there were people everywhere, filling the news shop, heading in all directions, strolling, rushing, dragging children in bags, but nowhere did she see her mother's or father's or little sister's familiar face. Her father had been standing right there a minute ago, hadn't he? Nahid looked straight ahead in the direction she had just come from. Or was it that way? Or there? It all looked the same. There were faces everywhere, but no one she knew. Her heart started to pump more quickly, and she felt the heat filling up her body. A tiny band of sweat formed instantly across her forehead. How would she ever find them? She could feel tears springing into the corners of her eyes. There were people all around her, too many people. Too many faces. She didn't want to start crying, but it was about to happen anyway. She kept walking, looking down at the ground, hoping her feet would keep working even if her brain wouldn't. Sorry. She kept walking, looking down at the ground, hoping her feet would keep working even if her brain wasn't. In this way, she banged directly into something solid, unmoving, and talking. Hey, watch where you're going. Nahid looked up. It was so weird. For a second, it seemed like a girl from one of those magazines had actually stepped out and was here, right in front of her. Light brown hair, long and straight, carefully pulled away from her face and delicate neck. She had perfect skin and a perfect outfit, white t-shirt with some kind of logo tucked into her belted jeans. Oh, oh no, now look what happened, the girl said. The impact of two bodies had sent the girl's bag spilling onto the floor. Chapstick, a water bottle, a Walkman, and a plastic change purse, unfortunately not quite tightly closed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Now surely Nahid was going to cry. She began to bend down next to the girl to help her when she saw, across the way, her little sister Nuri, waving her arms. Here, here, Nuri was saying. Nahid felt a wash of comfort pour over her. Her mind cleared. Her heart slowed with relief, then sped back up with joy. She hadn't lost them. There was her family standing by the far window. The plane had arrived. Even Uncle Iman and Aunt Judith were a welcome sight. Nahid stopped trying to collect the girl's things. She stood up. Oh, never mind, the girl said, wisps of her hair now loose and falling into her eyes as she gathered her things from the floor. I got it. Sorry. Thanks, Nahid called back. Sorry. But her voice was absorbed into the airport terminal din.